Hi everyone, I'm Hannah and this is our group intervention demonstration. A brief overview of our case study. So this isn't our full one, but this is just an overview. Michelle Rodriguez is a 23-year-old Hispanic female who was born in Phoenix, Arizona. She grew up in a middle-class home in Gilbert, Arizona, and she has no siblings. Michelle currently resides in a two-bedroom apartment with her roommate and best friend, Alex. Michelle and her girlfriend, Victoria, have been together for 2 years after meeting at work. Michelle works full-time as an office assistant while pursuing her degree in business management. Approximately 7 months ago, Michelle was driving home after work when another driver made an illegal left turn right in front of her. Michelle later recounted, "It felt like time was moving in slow motion, all while at the speed of light at the same time." Michelle's vehicle was totaled in the accident, but thankfully she only suffered from a broken leg and no other major injuries. Initially, after the accident, Michelle reported having trouble sleeping, stating that she was having nightmares where she was reliving the accident. Michelle's insurance provided her with a rental car. However, Michelle found herself paralyzed with fear every time she attempted to get behind the wheel and drive. Just the thought of having to get in the car and drive caused her to hyperventilate and break out into tears. She found herself unable to drive herself to her appointments for her leg. Eventually, Michelle was discouraged and realized that not only was she terrified to drive, but as time passed and as she attempted ride to the store with Alex, it ended in tears and a panic attack. She quickly realized that even being a passenger was out of the question. Embarrassed by her own behavior and unable to drive to work or school, Michelle was forced to take a leave of absence from work, and she has delayed enrolling in school for the upcoming semester. Michelle has made several attempts to just get over it with no success. She reports feeling anxious when thinking about driving. The anxiety feeling is usually followed by increased heart rate, stomach aches, shallow breathing, headaches, shaking, and crying. Michelle benefits from a strong support system, and she has a very open relationship with her parents, and everything is reportedly going well in her other relationships. Michelle has been feeling a little depressed lately, stating that she is worried that she will not be able to put the trauma of the car accident behind her.
So after some discussion with the client, we have decided on the following treatment goals. So the first goal for our client, Michelle, was that she wanted to be able to hold her keys in her hand again. That was something that she was really struggling with. So we're going to be using exposure therapy in order to do this. So our first measurable objective would be that the client is going to plan out 3 times a day to hold her keys in her hand. She's even going to set a timer in order to do this for at least 1 minute a day and increase the time gradually over a 6-week time period is what we've agreed on. And then she's going to continue that after mastery, just to get her back in the habit of carrying those keys around. The second measurable objective for this goal is that once the client has mastered holding her keys in her hand that 3 times daily, she's going to start to walk out to the car 3 times per day and just unlock that car door and open the door and close it. Getting in the car is not going to be required for this step. The next overall goal is going to be that the client actually wants to be able to drive in a residential area. So our first measurable objective for this goal is going to be the client getting back in the driver's seat of the car. Then we're going to graduate to starting the car and just leaving it in park. We're going to try to do this twice per day for at least 5 minutes. And we thought a good place to start here would be maybe at the time that she would be leaving for work and getting home from work, just to get her back in those habits. And then the second measurable objective for this goal is that the client will actually eventually practice driving once weekly to the end of the street and back home until mastery. Now, the final goal for treatment is going to be managing her emotions when it's time to actually go somewhere. So some strengths in achieving the goal are going to be the client's motivation for treatment, engagement, personal insight, and willingness to ask for help. And then the first measurable objective here is going to be that the client will engage in a mechanism for monitoring her mood, an objective measurement of improvement. And then the next measurable objective is going to be that the client and therapist will discuss 5 different coping mechanisms for managing those emotional triggers when the client is practicing on her own. And then the final method or technique to achieve this objective is going to be going to individual therapy. And then that's going to be an ongoing weekly case management with the therapist. So some tentative interventions that we have are going to be, like I mentioned before, the exposure therapy. And that treatment is going to include various forms of exposure therapy, including in vivo, imaginal, and flooding.
Her presenting problems and symptoms. The client said that the flashbacks and nightmares have been an ongoing problem since the accident 7 months ago. She described irritability and sleep difficulties being her main concern at the present time, but also described difficulty with concentration and hypervigilance. There has been an increase since it has become more evident that she cannot even seem to be a passenger in a car, making it more difficult for her to return to work. The client discussed the feelings of detachment that she began to feel about a month after the accident as she saw others being able to happily move on with their lives and get from point A to point B with ease, while she continues to suffer. She became weepy, stating that if she could just get into the car again, she could get her life back. And the DSM-5 diagnosis that we gave her was post-traumatic stress disorder chronic, which the code is F43.12.
Some potential strengths and growths for this client. The client's strength includes her willingness to receive treatment and be an active participant in her treatment. The client also reports that she has a strong support system. That includes her parents, her girlfriend, Victoria, and her roommate, Alex. Her willingness to improve not only for herself, but for her family, as she mentioned that she's starting to feel a little bit like a burden to her family and her friends. The client is also looking to improve her overall mental health. She understands that she has to take steps to get herself back into the car, and improving her mental health is one of those. She seeks to develop better coping strategies than walking away from the situation in order to reach her goals. So she's going to work on avoidance. The client discussed that she wants to fight against her feelings of detachment and stop blaming those around her for her trauma so that she can really use their support to its full potential.
Oops. And this is our role play using exposure therapy.
Anna? Hey, Michelle, I'm glad we were able to meet today.
Thank you. It was really difficult for me to get here, but I know I need the help.
I definitely hear what you're saying. Have you received any therapy before in the past?
Well, not like I was supposed to. This is actually my first time coming to therapy, like ever. I really shouldn't have waited so long to get some help, but I was really scared.
That's totally understandable, and I just want to tell you I admire your courage for facing your fears today. And I know that if we collaborate, we can come up with a plan of action that's going to place you on a path to healing. Okay?
I definitely would like that. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Well, before we get started, I do need to talk with you about confidentiality policy.
Okay.
So everything that we discuss during our session is confidential. So that means I will not share any information about our sessions with anyone else, but I wanted to highlight some exceptions to this policy. if I receive a subpoena from the court, if I have any concerns that you may harm yourself or others, including crimes against children or the elderly, I will have to report that. Finally, if there may be some instances where I have to discuss with one of my supervisors to ensure that I'm doing the best to apply the best, most ethical treatment for you, I might have to do that. Do you understand the parameters of the confidentiality?
Yeah, I get it.
Basically, just what stays here, what says here stays here, almost like Vegas. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. Let's see here. Well, before we get started, let me see if I go over my notes here. I think I've had a chance to go over your intake file a little bit, but I wanted to hear in your words what your hopes are for therapy and a little bit about what happened with this accident. Maybe a little bit more details if you could manage them.
Okay. Yeah, I can talk about it. About 7 months ago, I was coming home from work and I got into a really bad car accident. I was driving home and everything was fine. And then out of nowhere, the car next to me made an illegal left turn. And it felt like time was moving slow, but yet it moved so fast and I just didn't have any time to react. Unfortunately, my car was totaled and I did go to the hospital after the car accident. I had to have a cast put on my leg because I had a fracture and I had a mild concussion. It was just horrible.
Wow, Michelle, that sounds extremely tough to endure.
Yeah, it was. And I was so scared. And now that I'm healing, I just can't seem to make it past that day of the accident. Like, it just plays in my mind over and over again. And I haven't been able to drive, and I have a hard time riding in a car with other people. Sometimes I just get struck with fear, and I can't move, and I feel like I can't breathe, and I end up having these panic attacks and stuff. And I just keep crying. I just burst out into tears all the time. I don't think I'll ever be able to drive again.
That's excellent, Laura. Could you please continue?
There was this one time I wanted to ride to the store with my girlfriend Alex, and I thought about it all day. I knew we was going to go to the store when she got off work. I knew I could just get into the car and just go with her. Like, I prepared myself all day about it. I kept telling myself, come on, Michelle, you just got to get over it. You just got to do it. But when I walked to the car, I just started sweating. My hands, my heart started racing. Like, just thinking about it now, I'm just getting all shaky. I couldn't breathe. Alex, my girlfriend, had to come over. She had to walk me back into the house. Like, she had to put her hands over me and walk me because I could barely walk. I just felt like my muscles and stuff started tensing up really bad. It was bad.
Okay. So I'm hearing you're feeling shaky. Your stomach's having some issues, some sweating, nervousness, anxiety. Are there any other symptoms that we might have missed that you can think of?
Yeah, the shakes, like you said, and my stomach, and sometimes I get headaches. But most of all, I just cry all the time. Like, I can't stop myself from crying.
I'm so sorry. That sounds so unpleasant, and I'm sorry that you're having to deal with this. I really am. Have you been anywhere since the accident?
No. I mean, I missed 2 doctor's appointments since the last accident. My primary care physician, he sent a nurse to my home. And she's able to give me a physical and check on my blood pressure and stuff. I'm really scared I won't be able to leave the house ever again.
That's a legitimate fear, for sure. How has this affected your social life?
I mean, what social life? I don't have a social life at this point. My girlfriend and I, we bought tickets to a concert almost a year ago, and we just couldn't go. Like, I can't leave the house. I can't get in the car. I can't help with grocery shopping. My girlfriend and my roommate, they have to do everything for me. I haven't even been able to visit my parents who live in the next town over, and it's leaving me feeling like really isolated.
This does sound like a heavy burden that you are carrying, Michelle. It really does. Any other symptoms that you might want me to know about? Anything else going on?
Yeah, I mean, lately I've been having flashbacks. Sometimes I can't sleep because I hear the car horn in my head. It's like I can't get it off my mind. I can't get it to shut off. And sometimes I could just be sitting watching TV and then I could just see the car wreck happening in my mind. I mean, our dog, just last week, our dog bumped into the table and knocked over a pile of dishes, and I had a complete meltdown at the loud crashing sound. Sometimes when I be watching TV, I see those lawyer videos and they show car wrecks, and it just makes me cry uncontrollably.
I see. And I'm telling you, what you're feeling is normal for what folks experience in this type of situation when they've experienced this type of trauma. And that's what this is. This is the trauma that you've experienced. But I want you to know that we can work together to form out a plan that can meet your needs, okay?
Okay.
I actually specialize in what's known as exposure therapy. It's a type of therapy that may have a scary sounding name, but if we work to plan together, small increments, I think we can have success toward our goals.
Okay. What can I do?
Well, if this sounds something that you might be interested in first, what we'll do is we complete what's called a hierarchy of fear list.
Okay.
Okay, so what I want you to think about is 3 tasks that bring you the most anxiety related to driving, getting in the car. And I'll start you off with an example, okay?
Okay.
So you mentioned earlier that when you wanted to go to the store with Alex, you made it as far as the car, then you had a panic attack, right?
Right.
Okay, so we can list one of your tasks as being able to sit in the car.
Ooh, that sounds hard.
You know, if you had to rate how hard it would be, though, 5 being
I would think that's a 4.
okay. Take that down. Great. Can you think of anything else?
I know trying to hold my car keys.
Excellent, excellent, Michelle. Great. Where would you rate that at?
That's 1. I could do that.
Okay, great. Can you give me 2 more?
I really want to be able to drive my car again.
Absolutely, that's a big one. Where would you put that one?
A 5. I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Okay, and 1 more.
I really would like to stop feeling anxious when I think about or when anything connected to driving or riding in a car. I want not to cry all the time and have these awful anxiety feelings.
Where would you rate that and how tough that would be for you?
Maybe a 2.
Okay. Well, you did it, Michelle. You completed your hierarchy of fears list. See? Great job. This is a great plan to start out with. I know this list, at first glance may look intimidating, but it sounds like you have a great support system in place. And I want to remind you that we can go slow as we need to at a steady pace. We're not in a hurry. We don't have to rush. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, I do have some homework assignments that we're going to assign just to kind of keep you mindful. And I know. But just a couple of things after our sessions to bring you back and talk about, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So for this week, how do you feel about trying to hold your keys, making that effort, just in the house, holding your keys?
You know what? I've been thinking about that. I think I could do that. I want to definitely give that a try this week.
That is awesome. That's a great start, Michelle. If we could, I want us to shoot for trying to hold our keys 3 times a day. If we can, maybe if we want a morning, afternoon, and night, however your schedule permits. Let's try to do that. Let's come back. Let's talk about our progress, where we're at, and then we'll get started if that sounds all right to you.
That sounds good. Thank you so much.
No problem. You're gonna do great, Michelle. I really have a feeling you're gonna do great. Again, we will meet back here probably next week about the same time, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Hannah?
Oops. and then our post role play intervention approach, that prolonged exposure intervention will be administered in a graduated fashion due to the severity of Michelle's trauma as well as her physical injuries. This will allow for a comfortable in vivo exposure experience for Michelle, as Michelle's hierarchy of exposure shows that the actual physical act of driving again is at the pinnacle of her list. So she will need slow and measured but direct exposure to the car. Response prevention does not appear to be expedient in this situation, and Michelle displays intense trauma that is manifested with both physically and emotionally deliberating symptoms, at least initially. The use of imaginal exposure will be used with homework assignments. And the two handout activities that we have, one of them goes into just the different types of exposure therapies and breaks them down a little bit in a more user-friendly type of display. And then the other worksheet is a hierarchy of exposure, hierarchy of fear list / activity that one could do with a client. All right, and that is all we have, so thank you for listening.